And to protect himself, he reveals that he's created a dead man's switch. If he fails to check in once a day, a final unencrypted version of the entire Epstein network file will be automatically released to every major news outlet and law enforcement agency on
So then that way they can't get to him because he's already got everything. That's smart. Yo, what's going on, everybody? I seen this video pop up on my timeline. This got to be one of the most out-of-pocket titles I think I've ever seen, but it's genius. Could L catch Epstein? Without a doubt in my mind, I truly believe 100% that L would catch Epstein, but it's not a matter of whether you could catch him or not. It's a matter of whether you could convict him or not. And what I mean by that is a lot of people knew about the shenanigans that went to that island. Why the fuck would you go to that island? People knew about that for years. It was just the files was like the confirmation, right? What are you gonna do when he blackmails you? You can't say nothing. What are you gonna do if he tries to kill you? Nothing. But then again, Light was trying to kill L, so I don't know. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Let's get it.
It would take L less than 5 minutes to solve the Epstein case, and that's me being generous. Let me break down exactly why, and more importantly,
5 minutes.
how. Spoiler alert, I'm also going to bring up Light Yagami, so you absolutely need to watch till the end of the video. First, we'll power scale L to understand the depth of his genius. You see, in the world of Death Note, the three greatest detectives on Earth, L, Geraldo Coyle, and Denev, are actually all the same person. And this man has been at the top of the global investigation scene since he was only 8 years old, which is when he single-handedly prevented World War III. Now, the public record says he solved over 35...
Shit, it was crazy. We about to be in World War III. We need a L in IRL. We need somebody to stop all this shit, bro. Oh my god. Like, L was always a step ahead of Light. I don't give a f, bro. Light, he makes too many blunders, bro. Like, he has a lot of great moments, but specifically when they had the fake L on the screen and then Light just got mad and killed him out of spite, that was a blunder.
Difficult cases, but the real number is significantly higher because of those alternate identities. To give you an idea of the scale he operates on, Mello, one of his successors, once mentioned that L maintains at least triple-digit active codes for various detective personas. Still, if you want the one intelligence feat,
I'm gonna be honest, once they started introducing Nero and all the students, that's normally when I stop watching. Like, that's when the rewatch stopped. It should have been Light and L and their rivalry, and then you just had like a big climax exposition, I think, if that's the word. I don't know if that's the correct phrase. And then it just, we reach a conclusion, which would have been maybe L dying and then maybe they both die. I feel like that would have been crazy. Like, imagine Light crashing out like how he did in the series and he just writes bro's name and then they catch him in the act and they kill him. That'd be crazy.
Relevant here, it's this. Back when his rogue successor, Beyond Birthday, created a crossword puzzle so complex that an entire team of policemen gave up on it, and even the elite FBI agent Naomi Misora thought it was designed to be impossible, L solved it instantly. And Beyond Birthday is not a fraud. He is the primary antagonist of the Los Angeles BB murder cases novel, and he's genius enough to act as L's evil clone. When he tried convincing Naomi that he was actually L, he read a 376-page book in under 5 minutes and memorized every page perfectly.
I don't think L is incapable of exposing Epstein. I think he would figure that shit out in 2 minutes. But how are you gonna bring somebody to justice who just has overwhelming influence and overwhelming connections? Because, come on, bro, there's a lot of people that are implicated in these files. You gonna round them up? I don't know, man. And then you got to also consider, like, he's a fictional character and you got a real life character. So you could say some shit that's like ideal for fiction, but let's be realistic here. I want realism.
Now, if he's pulling off feats like that and L is superior to him, you can imagine what L's photographic memory looks like. So when I say L can solve the Epstein case in 5 minutes,
that's what I'm saying.
I'm not being hyperbolic. If anything, I'm being conservative. This man processes information faster than entire government investigative bureaus combined. He can monitor dozens of computer screens simultaneously and absorb every data point perfectly. And because he immediately understands every data point, he can weigh every probability in real time and calculate precise percentages in his head. But here's where it gets tricky. I'm sure that you can already tell that superhuman genius alone isn't enough to solve the Epstein problem.
Yes.
You see, L is a detective. Yes, he's the top one detective, but he's limited in what he can do. His whole thing is narrowing down suspects in closed systems. But how does that work with Epstein? The way Epstein operated has been well documented since at least 2005.
Well, he is the system. He took control. He has connections to everybody everywhere.
The real problem was never a lack of evidence. It was that too many people in power were either compromised or complicit. Having said that, let's see how this actually plays out.
How the hell was Stephen Hawking there, bro? Why was he? That's like the most random place.
Power were either compromised or
look, what was he doing there, bro?
Complicit. Having said that, let's see how this actually plays out. The year is 2005, March 2005 to be precise. A stepmother contacts the Palm Beach police because her 14-year-old stepdaughter came home with $300 in cash. When she asked the girl about it, she ended up explaining the entire recruitment pipeline. Basically, a classmate had approached her at school and offered her money to give an older man a massage. The classmate drove her to a pink mansion at 358 El Brillo Way. Once in, Epstein entered wearing nothing but a towel. And I'll spare you the details, but to make a long story short, she walked away with
I never heard this story. This is so fucking freaky, bro. Like, why a kid, though? Like, why not get a bad bitch, a grown bitch to do it? I don't understand.
Now, at first, this looks like a case of a local rich pedo creep. Nothing about it suggests you're dealing with a man who has billion-dollar financial leverage, a global contract list, and 2 decades of cultivating relationships with presidents, royalty, and prosecutors. But by October 2005, Detective Rick Harry was interviewing victim after victim, and the pattern was identical every single time. Girls would get recruited by their friends. They'd be driven to the same mansion, asked to give a massage, but as you can expect, it would often escalate to God knows what. And then they'd get money. And here's the thing. Once a girl was in, she was in. She'd be pressured to bring more girls, which is how the network just kept...
How do you get pressured to do that, though? Well, then again, he did say that he was going to burn people's homes and definitely probably with threatening them. Man, this shit is diabolical.
And Epstein was...
Like, this is literally like, I'm sorry to pause so much, but I got to say this, right? If you told somebody, yeah, there was an elite pedophile ring where every single notable world leader and every celebrity and billionaire was attending, and they had this network that they used to traffic women, young girls and boys to this island where they would have them do all of these heinous acts. That doesn't even sound believable. That sounds like a conspiracy theory. But it's real life. Like, this is the world we live in.
Killer about them being young. So, okay, Rick Harry built his case methodically. He collected everything from property records proving Epstein owned the mansion, to flight logs showing travel between Palm Beach, New York, New Mexico, and Little St. James Island in the Caribbean. Not to mention witness statements describing the same housekeeper, the same recruitment methods, the same cash payments. He documented everything. By May 2006, Detective Joseph Rick Harry submitted a comprehensive probable cause affidavit to the Palm Beach County State Attorney's Office. It was the culmination of an 11-month investigation and clearly had overwhelming evidence for direct charges. But
how do you... I wonder if these people were scared for their lives, because I would be. If somebody has connections with all of the elite, they could get you out of there, bro. And it's like, the way that I'm thinking, you submitting the probable cause shit, right, to the Palm Beach whatever. What if he's working with Epstein? Then what?
Rather than filing charges based on Rick Harry's affidavit, State Attorney Barry Krischer took the case to a grand jury, and the grand jury returned a very limited indictment. And as we know, it ultimately led to the controversial 2008 non-prosecution agreement. Now, why am I bringing all this up? To show you just how much was known even back in 2005. Plus, for this scenario, we're going to assume Elle gets a chance to look at Rick Harry's affidavit in May 2006. We know the Death Note anime came out in October 2006, right? Well, even though the manga came out much earlier, for this scenario, let's just say that the main story of Death Note took place between 2006 and 2007. So this would be a few months before Light picks up the Death Note. And here is exactly how Elle solves it within 5 minutes. He goes through the affidavit, and immediately, within minutes, he solves the case. And I don't mean the way Rick Harry did. No. Elle goes much deeper. He connects the dots and realizes instantly that Epstein's ring is global. He sees that it implicates a stupid number of powerful people. We're talking billionaires, government officials, presidents, royalty, and more. Plus, Elle also figures out that Epstein is systematically collecting blackmail material on all of these powerful figures for a specific country that just popped up in everyone's head. Now, I'm not going to get too deep into specific names or the countries involved to keep things straightforward for the video, but basically, Elle realizes that by 2006, Epstein had already been operating for decades. Most importantly, he understands that Epstein currently holds more institutional power and protection than even he does.
Damn, bro.
The
He's plugged in with all the billionaires, all the politicians. Like, come on, bro.
detective in the world. Naturally, this also confirms that the Department of Justice and the FBI he works as part of are compromised. This is where it stops being a detective case. You see, in Death Note, L commands...
So what? He's just like, well, it's nothing I can do. This is above my pay grade.
Interpol, Japanese National Police, FBI liaisons, and the Kira task force. He has institutional authority, but that also means he needs the system to actually work with him. Now that same system is compromised and complicit, so if L plays by the rules, he'll get nowhere, which is why he has no choice but to take matters into his own hands. When the director of the FBI learns that L is looking into the files, L receives an invitation to Little St. James, the so-called Epstein Island. By this point, Epstein has owned this island for 7 years.
Oh my god, I can't even physically imagine that. Yo, L just sitting there with Stephen Hawking and Epstein like these, and he's just, interesting. It's a bunch of young girls here. Are you aware, Mr. Epstein, that this is illegal? You have all of these billionaires with you, and he's just sitting like this, just analyzing shit. Bro.
All right, what now? L is invited. And if you think that's stupid, and you're wondering why on earth Epstein would invite a potential threat like L to his private island, you have to keep in mind who we're dealing with. This is the same guy who was revealing every bit of information about what he does over Gmail, while most of you out here are using VPNs just to pirate some anime and games. Yes, elites aren't exactly high IQ. So once Epstein...
Well, I don't think that he gives a fuck, because the people I see it in the sense that he would want to work with L in order to have somebody that could cover his tracks, have somebody that could have his back, you know what I mean? And that's the thing. Epstein was a socialite. He knew that building bonds and connections with people was the way that he could gain power and influence. So it would make sense for him to want to reach out to L.
He learns that the FBI's top detective is finally onto him. His first instinct is to simply invite the guy over. Of course, L knows exactly what the play is going to be, but he still goes ahead and accepts the invitation for 2 reasons.
I'm thinking, what, he's gonna go and just document everything and expose it online? Like, what is he gonna do?
First, it's because even though he has a sense of morality and justice, his primary motivation is the desire to win. And because of that, he simply can't bring himself to back away from a challenge like this. Second, it's because he can tell exactly why Epstein would invite him in the first place. Now, from the looks of it, it's Watari who makes the trip while carrying a laptop with L connected via voice chat. The second Watari steps off the helicopter, L starts carrying
I'm gonna be honest with you, that laptop should be dead. I don't think they would let you walk in with a camera.
everything. He notices right away that the staff to guest ratio is crazy. So there are dozens of employees just for a handful of visitors. He sees how every single sightline is controlled,
crazy.
how the security cameras monitor
They
every
had a
guest,
whole
and how
island.
the entire environment is designed for observation and control. Epstein gives him the tour and then eventually offers Watari a drink. He accepts a glass of water, and after observing the glass for a split second through the screen, he takes a sip. They sit on the terrace, and at this point, Epstein just goes ahead and comes right out with what he's doing. He explains how he has the most powerful people in the world on camera, everyone from presidents and royalty to prime ministers, bankers, and scientists. Epstein leans forward, and as Elle sees the void in his eyes, he reveals that what he and his backers are ultimately seeking is control. Then Epstein extends his hand toward the laptop and offers Elle a chance to become an equal partner. He wants to use Elle's brain to help him expand his network so that they can eventually gain control of the entire world together.
That's
Elle
what I
remains
see, yup.
completely calm while he processes Epstein's specific phrasing and body language through the feed. He can tell that Epstein actually believes this, and that he truly wants to be the invisible hand.
Yeah, I think he would tell him what he would want to hear. Like, interesting. How would this blah, 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 blah. And he would just like probably ask him questions about what he would want him to do. And he'll probably play like double agent. I feel like that's the play he would take.
Moving civilization. He can also see that Epstein isn't afraid of him at all. If anything, Epstein is actually excited by him. Now, Epstein was clearly expecting some kind of a big response here, but Elle stays completely quiet on the voice chat. Then Watari walks back to the table, picks up a few wrapped chocolates, and puts them in his pocket. He just says, "I'll take some for the flight if you don't mind." And with that, he asks a staff member to tell their helicopter pilot that they're ready to leave. The moment is so absurd and so deliberately anticlimactic that Epstein Epstein doesn't even know how to respond. He expects a negotiation or a rejection, or maybe even an acceptance. But in all the decades he has operated, he had never experienced a complete dismissal like this. He thought that since Elle already knew the truth, he could just offer him a partnership. But this is how it went? Little did Epstein know that the reason Elle didn't respond at the end was because the voice chat was actually a recording. I mean, did I mention that the helicopter pilot is actually Elle himself? He wanted to physically observe the island with his own eyes, so he tagged along disguised as the pilot. All the while, his voice recording kept Epstein occupied. Next,
I didn't even see that. Whoa! That was a crazy plot
as the helicopter
twist.
takes off, Elle looks down at the compound, shrinking below him. Okay, what now? If the FBI director is already compromised, and if Epstein's influence extends across multiple countries, how is Elle going to defeat him? It's a
Yeah, because Epstein had connections with the president. Presidents. How are you gonna do this?
Especially considering how the longer it takes, the more Epstein's influence is going to grow. Plus, you have to remember this is still 2006, which is well before what happened in 2008. Elle knows that he has to act right away, so he decides to go all in on the affidavit. He realizes he has to crack everything Epstein has built to neutralize that influence, and that includes making the truth mainstream as early as possible.
Yeah, probably leak that shit and then just... The way that I see it is like you would have to put everybody's... I don't know. The way that I'm seeing it is like this. Elle, he doesn't make mistakes like that. You know what I mean? He's very meticulous, very well planned. I think if you're going to go ahead and catch Epstein, you got to catch everybody implicated. So he would drop like a super affidavit and everybody's names would be mentioned with everything that they did, every log, every record, and it would just be in a fat packet. And he would just... Here's all the evidence. I've already compiled everything, and I have it neatly sorted with every single crime analyzed. Epstein is currently implicated in 139 felonies, 385 misdemeanors, as well as many civil disputes that are being handled here. Boom. He's currently looking at multiple life sentences, as well as everybody implicated will be serving at least a minimum of 80 years in jail. Boom. You know what I mean? All filed, all note, T/I's dotted, perfect, without even a 1% error of like, you can't even what is it called? 1% of like denial. No denial, 100%.
In our world, it's taken until basically this year for the general public, especially in Western countries, to get a clear idea of what was really going on.
And nobody's arrested, by the way.
He needs to get it out within 20 hours, not 20 years. He starts by looking into potential journalists who might already be onto Epstein. And while he's reading through the Miami Herald, he finds
But then again, if it's an entire network, then it's like an entire top-down operation. Like, you would do you know how many people you would have to round up? It wouldn't be just Epstein. It would be Epstein, all of the top-level people that he has connections with, all of the people that work with the top-level people to help facilitate things, and then it has to go down to a certain point because you can't round up too many people. Like, you see how complicated this shit gets? Only somebody like Elle could flawlessly and make it so like organized and easy, bro.
Kay Brown. She's already doing exactly what he needs. In reality, she's the one who eventually got the former police chief and lead detective to talk publicly about how the case was sabotaged. And her series, Perversion of Justice, was what explained how Epstein secured that lenient plea deal in 2008. Okay, so Elle seeks her out immediately and shares everything he has learned with her. Now, Elle knows that journalists can only do so much. They publish, people read, and then what? Some victims might come forward.
But the court of public opinion and the court of law operate in two different ways, right? Just because there's certain things that, the court of public opinion can affect the court of law because it changes your perception. You don't just go from this innocent businessman or this innocent socialite anymore. You are literally the greatest pedophile of all time. You are a super predator who is a danger to society. That's how people view him. Do you get what I mean? You're not just going to be, I'm an innocent Jewish guy from New York. No, you're going to be a menace. So, and that reminds me of when the files were leaking and people were looking at all of the interviews and shit. People were looking at all of that material different with the information that they have now. So if you affect the court of public opinion, you can then affect the court of law, because people will push, there would be a push in the public to apprehend everybody involved.
Many would be either too afraid or too deep into the system to go public. After all, Epstein reportedly used the phrase, "Those who help him will be compensated, and those who hurt him will be dealt with," to intimidate witnesses into staying quiet.
It's
What
like a
Elle
mob
really
boss.
needs is to create an irreversible cascade of information that makes the truth impossible to contain. He begins gathering as much data as possible to build a web that includes all the records of flights on the Lolita Express, financial donations, and public photos. He makes notes on which individuals were likely there for business, as in financial or political leverage, and which were there for pleasure. Then, for every compromised official like the FBI director, Elle identifies a clean counterpart or a political rival who would love nothing more than to see that person burn. This is obviously easier
I didn't
said
even
than
think
done,
about that.
and Elle needs help from hundreds of people like Reverie and Julie K. Brown, but once he has enough solid information organized into a digital web, he prepares to make it public through multiple channels. And here's where Elle's genius really shows itself. He knows that if he just dumps everything at once, the story would become too big too fast, and it'll be easier for the general public to dismiss it as a conspiracy. Plus, mainstream news outlets would get too many shutdown calls from their powerful friends.
Yup.
So Elle does something counterintuitive. When he's ready to release it, he intentionally leaves out the names of the most powerful people. The initial release focuses entirely on Epstein's trafficking and blackmailing ring, how it operates, how long it had been running, and how girls were recruited at schools. The web mentions that powerful people were involved.
You don't want it to be too crazy. You want them to digest it first and introduce. Okay, I wasn't even thinking about it like that.
Just to explain.
I was thinking just drop all of it. But then again, yeah, people were saying that shit was a conspiracy for a long time.
The scale, but it doesn't name them. Again, this is to simply make sure that the initial wave of
The
coverage
conspiracy. Hey, go to your conspiracy homie and tell him he was right. Because everything that your conspiracy homie was talking about, that shit ended up playing out. And that's normally how it is, bro. That's normally how it is.
This is on the
shit
crime
don't get
itself,
released. The
rather
shit gets
than
released years after, and you don't give a fuck. You know.
the politics of naming names. The media runs with it. Within 20 hours, the story stops being a local scandal and becomes global. And that's when Elle makes his second move. He sends anonymous emails to the rivals of every compromised official he's identified, and he sends them the full web. He just gives them the truth and trusts that enough of them, for enough different reasons, will act. Some will act because they have a moral compass. Some will act because they see a massive political advantage. And some will act simply because they're terrified of being implicated themselves. But even after that, Elle is just getting started. The next step is going directly after the names on Epstein's list. Elle anonymously sends a highly sanitized, encrypted message to a select few of the most powerful people on that list. Specifically, the ones he deduced were only there for business leverage. Since they were there for business, it's easier for them to talk their way out of the truly messed up stuff. So Elle's message to them is simple. Mr. Anonymous has all the blackmail material, and they have to cooperate now, or it's a declaration of war. This is how Elle creates absolute paranoia.
And then it gets released online.
We had to fracture the network from the inside. As much as
smart.
Elle wants to destroy the system, he also wants to win his personal game against Epstein. And to do that, he first has to make Epstein
That
a
was smart.
liability that the system he built can no longer afford to protect. Now remember how I mentioned that Elle is all three of the top 3 detectives in the world? That's not public information. To the public, the number 2 detective, Geraldo Coyle, and the number 3, Deneuve, are completely different people. It's a layer of anonymity that gives him 3 different lives to play with. Another thing to keep in mind is that the web Elle creates isn't omniscient. He doesn't have every single piece of evidence yet. He only has what he's seen or deduced. The real incriminating evidence only starts pouring in once the story becomes a global incident. Once every major news outlet is on it, the momentum moves faster than anyone can pay to make it stop. This is where Elle makes his move as Deneuve. He publicly announces that he was the one who leaked the web, and to protect himself, he reveals that he's created a dead man's switch. If he fails to check in once a day, a final unencrypted version of the entire Epstein network file will be automatically released to every major news outlet and law enforcement agency on
So then that way they can't get to him because he's already got everything. That's smart.
He makes it clear to everyone
my
who
God.
is complicit that killing him only makes it worse. And while this looks
Yes!
like an ultimatum, it's actually pure
Yes!
strategy to further crack the
Genius!
network. You see, Epstein knows Elle is behind this because everything started falling apart the moment Elle entered the chat. However, Epstein's acquaintances, the powerful men backing him, have a different idea. They are not going to go down with him, especially when they realize they can simply
Every man
launch
for themselves. Everybody's going to want to protect what they got going on. So the moment he's not beneficial no more, they're going to sell out.
their crimes.
Especially if they have no choice. if he has the material on
through
him.
Epstein. And L knows exactly what they're thinking. In his room, he breaks down how Epstein's only utility to his backers was his ability to operate in the shadows. That utility is now gone. He's become a blindingly bright point of light in a scandal that threatens to engulf them all. And because of that, they won't protect him anymore. They'll make him the scapegoat and hope that his conviction calms the public outcry.
Yo, this shit is making me think. Do you think that there are other Jeffrey Epsteins in the world that we don't know about? Because he had a lot of influence, but he could just be one of many. That's crazy to me.
And it works. Within a month of L getting
He
it,
literally is a anime villain, bro. I can't lie.
Epstein is convicted, and L doesn't stop there either. Over the next few months, he gradually releases information about the other offenders one by one, and keeps the entire network in a state of terminal paranoia. Naturally, once it becomes clear that Deneuve would keep leaking information, regardless of whether he is dead or alive, the hits start.
I feel like L would just round them all up in one go and just pack them up and then just close the case.
Called in. Multiple contracts are put out on both L and Deneuve. This is where one of them seeks out the help of the world's second best detective, Geraldo Coyle. And of course, that is also L. To create a false sense of security, L uses his Geraldo Coyle persona.
Oh, they reach out to him to investigate the other versions of him. Ah, and then he's playing as a double agent, and he's getting even more information on him.
To stage the deaths of both L and Deneuve. It creates a massive wave of public outrage. But the people who hired Coyle are satisfied. But they're wrong. As more arrests are made, and the power shifts to the clean counterparts L identified earlier, the old guard begins to lose their grip. Still, many offenders remain untouched because, as a certain student in Japan would say, this world is rotten. And speaking of that student, this is where things peak. About half a year after L visited that island, Light Yagami picks up the death note. At this point, the Epstein list is
he just to get to writing everybody's fucking name. Nah, that was a good way to end it.
Knowledge. It's the biggest story in the world. So after Light tests the notebook, he starts writing the names of every offender on that list. He strikes his classic pose, looks out over the city and says to himself, this world is rotten, and those who are making it rot deserve to die. Someone has to do it, so why not?
Anime is so deep, bro. Like, it's crazy that you could take a piece of fiction and apply it to something so deep, dark, and sinister. And it serves as almost like each anime kind of has like a perspective. Like One Piece is all about freedom. Attack on Titan is kind of like a version of freedom, in a sense, but it's also talking about like imperial powers and colonization and shit. Death Note is kind of almost a view on just crime in general and the people that ruin the world. It could be talking about the billionaire class. You know what I mean? And it just keeps going. Naruto's about the cycle of pain. And that goes into imperial powers. The villages, you know, the Hidden Leaf Village going into the hidden, wherever Pain was at and shit like that. Yo, anime is really deep, bro. I think I'm going to let the video breathe here. So make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and recommend me some more videos like this, man. I'll see y'all later.